One of the things that takes time to develop is the ability to go and look critically at our own work and determine how to improve it, how to spot the things that could be fixed or made better. And oftentimes the way that we sort of work on that is we have students go and perform some assignment, we kind of tell them what the rubric for grading is going to be, and then they turn the assignment in, and maybe a week later or a few days later, they get feedback on it. And oftentimes it's much later, right? And what we'd really like to do is also give students the tools so that they can go and self-assess, basically get earlier feedback on what they're doing, be able to get a critical eye and maybe iterate several times before they ever turn it in and get that final feedback or that human feedback. So we'd like to give them sort of on-demand feedback on what they're doing, even if we don't happen to be around. Now, one way to do that that's often pretty effective is to have the tools go and apply a rubric. Now the key is that you spell out what the rubric is, and the rubric should be focused on really thinking about what are the concrete things that need to go into it. So I'm going to give you an example. We're going to create a prompt where we're going to go and apply a rubric to a student's work so that they could get feedback before they ever turned it in, so they could iterate on it more times. And often, if we can go and work on something and get immediate feedback, that helps us to learn, because it helps us to see, okay, well, here's what I improve next, here's what I improve next, and you start to get a sense of how things work. So, my teacher has asked me to write a story about what we did this summer. She has told us she will grade it as follows: detail 35 points, correct punctuation and spelling 50 points, use of complete sentences 15 points. Can you give me suggestions, don't give away the answer, for how to improve my current story? And so the goal of this is we want to apply the rubric. We don't want to generate the story. We don't want to say, here's the rubric, generate a story. We want to say, here's what I did. Don't give me the answer. Instead, suggest ways that I could improve it. And then here we put in the fictitious summer story that has some fictitious grammatical and spelling errors in it that is spelled out that the student is trying to get feedback on. And then it goes through and it says, all right, your story sounds excited. Let's focus on the 3 grading type criteria your teacher mentioned. Now notice what it's not doing. It's not giving them an answer. It's not generating the story for them. Instead, it's giving them feedback right then. Detail. To improve detail, think about adding more descriptions. What did things look like, feel like, smell like, sound like, or taste like? Can you describe the surroundings more? Can you talk about your feelings or reactions to events more? Correct punctuation and spelling. There are several words that are misspelled in some punctuation issues. Here are some words to double check. And it gives a list. Look out for correct use of commas, periods, and apostrophes. So it's not telling them necessarily right there, but it's telling them things to go and look at. And they'll have to figure out the correct spelling or where commas or apostrophes are needed. And then use of complete sentences. Given these points, can you try revising your story, and then I can review it again for you. So the goal is not to give the students a tool, but to instruct the tool to not give away answers, but to give feedback and areas for improvement so the students can iterate and help learn to do this themselves. Because over time and seeing the feedback, they can then begin to anticipate what it's going to be, and they can also start to see, okay, well, that's what I didn't do as well this time. Now let's see if I improve it. And then what's the next thing? And what's the next thing? But if we're only relying on humans, often that process is slow and we can't give as much feedback as quickly. Now we're still going to give the human feedback, but we want to give them tools that help them get it more often and help them get it more on demand so that they feel like they're engaged, they're constantly seeing what's changing and improving it, and we don't have this big gap.